my name is Trevor O'Connor from Unfiltered and Unaffected WorldViral.tv. We have Mike Flanagan, Trevor Macy, from the movie Oculus. I screened it on Tuesday and I loved it. It was great. On the way over here, I downloaded and watched the short that was the start of all of this.
Yeah. God, back in 2005.
Right.
Yeah. Long road between the short and this one.
Now, the short came out of your head completely.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I wrote it with a friend of mine named Jeff Seidman.
Okay.
We went to school together. And yeah, we had no money. I was like making a living at the time, shooting and editing those like car commercials that come on at 1 a.m. that drive you crazy.
Right.
And just really had to go out and make something. So we didn't have any resources. So it was just a bunch of friends. We spent 4 days shooting it. No lights, no money.
From what I read, you shot it on like $2,000.
Yeah, a little less actually.
Yeah.
And we spent most of that on renting a room to shoot in and buying the mirror online.
Now,
this plastic mirror.
The mirror in the short is very representative of the mirror.
Yeah, we
in Oculus.
For the like couple dozen people that had seen the short, we thought they think it was really cool. That,
right.
That we used it as kind of a jumping off point. So it has a lot of similarities in kind of the design, but the one for the feature has got a lot more detail to it that's really neat. And is kind of a little more sinister and more organic.
Yeah, it's definitely more overwhelming.
Yeah.
Seemingly in the feature, but it was interesting that they're very similar, and that you brought that over.
Well, I was hoping, like the short was actually really well received on the film festival circuit, so we did have kind of a very loud but small fan base for the short, and I wanted them to be as happy with the feature as possible.
Yeah, you don't.
Yeah.
When you get that cult following, the small cult following, if you make them angry.
Yeah, you do not want to turn them against you. Yeah.
Now, how did you connect with Trevor?
Years went by, like after the short was done, where we couldn't seem to get it set up as a feature because everybody kind of wanted to do it found footage style. The short has
because that's what's popular.
Yeah, and we didn't want to do it that way. So in between, I made a really low budget feature called Absentia, and that actually got out there. Found it was a straight to DVD and VOD distribution deal, but got out there. Trevor's company, Trevor Pictures, had me in for a general meeting based on that movie. And I pitched a couple ideas to them, all of which kind of fell down to the thud in the room. And on the way out, I just kind of threw the idea of Oculus out there. Like I'd kind of gotten to the point where I felt like it was a lost cause. Every time I would pitch it out, people would be like, "Oh, and there are cameras in the room, so it's sound footage?" And it's like, "No." Like, well, then we're not interested. So, but I kind of ended the meeting with that and checked out the short and then we developed the features together.
Yeah, it's a great development. So it struck me that it was, something I hadn't seen before.
Right, the inanimate object.
I mean, it's hard to pull off, right? But he did it really well in the short. And the thing that struck me about Absentia was how well he sustained tension and dread, which is not easy to do, especially on a budget.
$70K.
Yeah.
$70K for a feature.
Yeah.
Which is unheard of. That's like.
Oh, it's insane. I've never tried to do it again.
Craft services budget for like a week.
Oh yeah. And craft service would have been neat to have on that project.
Right.
We did it. We shot in my apartment. We had no lights. We had no really. The only equipment we had was a Canon 5D.
We are like kindred spirits.
Yeah,
I shoot everything, guerrilla style, DIY, hurry up, get it done, because if someone comes, they're going to ask us to leave and we won't get to reshoot anything.
It's the beauty of DSLRs. You can be like, I'm just a tourist.
I do that I use my GoPro for everything.
Yeah.
Because no one gets mad at it.
Right.
No one as soon as I bring out the large format, they're like, oh, well, if you're going to be filming.
That has a microphone on it.
Yeah.
Therefore, show us your papers.
So it's pretty crazy. Now, when you pitched Oculus, did you pitch it from the standpoint of the short? As the main character being Tim?
No.
Or in your mind, had it always been Kaylee?
Well, no, Like the transition from Tim to the Kaylee Tim thing happened in like 2007. So it was probably like 2 years after the short was done.
Okay.
And that was my writing partner Jeff Howard and I. That was kind of the one angle that we thought was going to really work, was to get it out of the one guy alone in the room,
Right.
bring in a counterpoint, and make it a strong female lead. So the way it kind of went at Intrepid was I first sat down with Neil Curian, who's an executive over there, and showed him the treatment that we had. It was a very short little just kind of proposal for the feature. And I think that's what went to you and to Mark Evans, who also produced the film. And they kind of had that to go off of what we would do. But that treatment it had the relationships and the braided timeline angle, but it was still also very different, because in that version, the present storyline took place in the basement of the auction house, and the past storyline took place in the childhood home. So it was actually in the development phase before we got into the script that Intrepid actually made the note that if they both took place in the same location,
Right.
and it's like suddenly this light bulb went off, and it was
Sure.
like, oh my god, you could do something really crazy with that and make it a really disorienting experience.
It gave it that multi-level feeling.
Yeah, it's like having both storylines taking place simultaneously in the same space.
Right.
Made it was like, oh my god, we can do so many cool things with this. So that kind of was that last gear that kicked in before we started writing. And it was a complicated script to put together, but we did it relatively quickly.
Yeah, we were in, after we decided to go, we were in production pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It was just a little over a year.
Were you worried at all about people not getting it? It seems as though so many people dumb down they have this grand idea of this great movie that will only be received by movie snobs.
Right.
So they dumb it down, get it to 8th grade level that people can chew on, and then, it goes. It seems like you did not dumb it down. You brought it, because when I left the screening, probably for another hour, I was going, and then that comes over here.
Billy Wilder famously said, if you let the audience add 2 + 2 for themselves, they'll love you forever.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a mistake to underestimate the intelligence of the viewer. And you have to kind of walk a fine line, because you want the movie to be as accessible to as many people as possible at the same time. So that's also a priority. So I think it's a mistake to actively dumb something down, but I understand where that instinct comes from. We definitely, with this, we're always like, we're going to give the audience the benefit of the doubt that they're going to appreciate a challenging and complex story. And I think, looking at some of the really complicated blockbusters that have come out, the ticket sales tend to reflect that, human beings are fundamentally intelligent and appreciate being spoken to in an intelligent way.
More engaged.
Yeah.
Because along the way we had a lot of comments, like the 3, I think, most regular comments we had from outside distributors and people who, we were contemplating getting in business with were, tell the origin story of the mirror, make it linear, and add more jump scares, which are all like 3 more specific versions of exactly what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And every horror movie has to have every so many minutes something's got to pop out.
Right.
Yeah. And we were resistant to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No.
And proudly so. I mean, we hope you'll get ahead a lot of you, but it's not going to be because somebody's jumping out from behind the door.
I can say, I don't know that I was as scared in the movie as I was an hour later digesting it.
Which is great. Like, I think for me, like, the horror movies that stick with me are the ones that burrow in and don't let go.
Yeah.
They're still disturbing me, Like, that's awesome.
It seems like there are some very set genres of horror.
Yeah, a lot of subgenres.
Right. There's gore, there's jump out and scare you, and then there's the cerebral that could actually happen, and this sticks with me for like a week of going, when I walk by the big mirror in our living room, I'm like, I'm just gonna glide this one for a minute. And it seems, in my opinion, it's the cerebral horror flicks that really, really do well, that are going to get multiple watches from a guy like me.
Right. There are also, though, I think the hardest to sell. Because people can point at gore in like a very jump scare kind of formulaic film and see a whole track record of similar movies that have been successful.
Sure.
Whereas if you kind of deviate off that path in a way that they don't know how to kind of draw the line to another example of something that's done as well, you know, people get a little more nervous. But yeah, I think those are the movies that certainly stick with me the most. They're also like, they tend to be made outside the studio system in a large part, and when those smaller movies get made, it's much harder for them to go out and find a wide release.
And to get that distribution is
Yeah.
killer. I mean, if you can't get in enough theaters that people can see it,
Yeah.
Right.
you won't be seen as a success.
Right.
Yeah.
Thus, then the movie's a failure, except for the fact that no one could see it.
Right.
Yeah,
And
so
it's-
many levels.
Well, it's funny because like when we did Absentia, it's like we saw a ton of independent horror movies that were really smart and really unique. That would, some of them never found any independent distribution. And for us, because we were such a tiny movie, that we got the VOD and DVD release turned out to be just fine. I mean, we actually made more money that way than we ever thought we would on that project. But it got it out there to enough of an audience that people started handing it out to each other.
Right.
And spreading the word that way. And I think that's kind of what you hope for with any kind of horror movie that's a little different, is that the fandom in the audience and people who appreciate something different are going to help propel the movie into other people's hands.
Sure.
You really rely on that.
It's going to be the blogs, it's going to be the message boards
Yeah.
that people know you got to check this out.
Yeah.
You gotta get it out. Sharing that trailer out and getting it out.
Yeah.
I put up a short blog after I screened it, you know, trying not to give away any movie points, but just telling people that, you know, I'm still working through it in my head, and people were like,
That's awesome.
"What? Come on, you're a grown man." One thing, there was a movie that I saw, man, it's been years ago, and for some reason when I left here the other day, it triggered. There was a movie called Brain Scan.
Brain Scan. With Edward Furlong?
Yes.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
Which wasn't a great movie,
Wow.
but it was one it kind of sparked in me that the double layers of reality.
Well, that one was like virtual reality, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right, where
I'm
this-
trying to remember. It was like the monster
He had the
with the red hair
game,
or something.
Which I
With
guess
funky-
the reason it tied into me is because Facebook just bought Oculus,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
that virtual reality.
Oh yeah. Oh no. We've
Yeah,
been
you guys have
very
bumped your
aware
head
of
into that a
Oculus
few
Rift.
times. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's why it triggered in me, because in that movie it was a virtual reality thing that then bled over and took over his mind, and he didn't know if it was him playing the game
Right.
or him in real life.
Yeah.
Very similar to the ending of this movie, where you don't know if it was him
Yeah.
Right.
doing, you know.
Well, ambiguity about reality. Like, that's one of the things going into a movie is that most audiences are very well trained to accept what they're seeing as objective reality of
Mhm.
the story, and it's like using an unreliable narrator to throw that up, you know,
Sure.
into question. I think is always really cool. The first movie that I can remember seeing that like rocked me that way was just like, I trust movies too much. I think it was Usual Suspects.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like you had to go back.
Yes.
And look at everything you'd seen and be like, the movie lied to me.
The whole
and that's
way,
awesome.
It
Like-
pushed me over there
Yeah.
the whole way.
Mhm.
Yeah, one of
I
my
love
favorite
that.
movies.
Yeah,
That's
I love that
a
movie.
brilliant film.
Yeah, you can not watch it for 5 years and watch it and still almost get tricked.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's,
If you
it's
don't,
so well done.
Yeah, if you don't know, then you don't. Yeah.
But that kind of disorientation of having to question, you know, the reality that we're just so used to
Yeah.
taking for granted in cinema, I think that's really fun.
Right. I mean, in the opening of the movie, in Oculus, it tells me what the reality is
Yeah, sort of.
until the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And now I don't like you really.
That's high praise right there.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, no, and kind of leaving it open to interpretation throughout the movie. I think just, you know, when you're in a scary movie, you kind of subconsciously look for stability. You look for something, either a laugh or something to relieve the tension, and something to kind of make you feel like you're on stable ground.
bring
so
me
you feel
back
safe.
to normal.
If you eliminate the safety, like it hopefully can create an experience that's way more intense. You know,
And terrifying.
Yeah.
And that's definitely something that happens in Oculus, in the fact that you go through that build up, and we've been trained through movies that we're about to have that before they start building us up again, and you brought me up to here, and then you shifted gears, but went up this direction, and the whole way I was like, when when does it come back and we get the, like the huggy part?
You're right. When can you? Yeah. And
no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
We talked about it a lot when we were writing. That it's like we wanted this to be like a pressure cooker, where it's like the pressure just increased and increased and never was.
Yeah.
Like we resisted every opportunity to relieve the tension. And I think you put it really well. It's just like it's a movie that puts its foot on your throat and just continues to push down harder and harder and harder and won't let you out.
Yeah, the whole way.
Yeah, that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
So make it as stressful and unpleasant as possible.
It seriously was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It was train wreck, in a good way.
Yeah,
like I could not let go. I was like, it's right there. It's right there.
And the trick when you're making that is that works if it's engaging.
Right.
So when we're making it like, okay, are we inviting people in? Are we like, are we engaging? Are we engaging? Because it's no, nobody likes a movie to just like,
The whole way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the nice part is it wasn't a 3-hour epic of trying to keep that going where I'm like, yeah, this is cool and I feel the tension, but
I'm about to stick a pin in that.
right, just
Yeah.
move past.
There's an exhaustion factor you have to be aware of. Yeah.
You definitely gave us the opportunity to connect the dots on our own in some jumps.
Yeah.
You went from here to here without telling this, but left enough of it out there that.
Well, yeah, and I think that's just kind of a philosophy. I think for me certainly, and I know the same was true when you did the Strangers.
Yeah.
That allowing the audience to connect the dots is more rewarding for them.
Sure.
Because otherwise it becomes a passive viewing experience, and you kind of turn your brain. Like people say, I love to go see horror movies so I can turn my brain on, and that makes me so sad.
Right.
It's like, wouldn't it be cool if you could go and it's going to really challenge it and wake you up?
I did not get to turn my brain on.
No, it won't work if you turn it on.
And it's what I like about being able to fill in the gaps is I get to fill in the gaps with the stuff in my mind that scares me anyway.
Yeah, that's going to be way more scary than something I can.
Right, because I get to go to my dark place
Yep.
and find that, which is cool.
Yeah, and that's essential. It's like, because this is such a universal fear, like fear itself is a universal one, like allowing an audience member to kind of go in and bring their own insecurities to it, it's going to be way better than something that we try to do with an effect or.
Sure.
Yeah, so I think that kind of trust in the imagination of the viewer, is kind of what movies like this are hopefully all about.
Yeah. No, I give it up. I'm pretty hard on horror movies. I really am.
Me too.
And I just, a lot of them I'm like, oh, really? Just the axe? That's where we're going with this?
Yeah.
And I can truly say that I really appreciated this movie. And I can't wait. My wife did not get to see it with me. So I get to enjoy it with her, but I will know so that I don't jump at the times when I'm not supposed to. She makes fun of me.
You get to look real brave.
Yeah, I get to look really cool.
It's like, big deal.
Quick couple industry questions before we close out for both of you. You come from the DIY background.
Yeah.
You made a movie through crowdfunding.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends, and there's a lot of people that I communicate with that are small-time filmmakers. What do you tell them? Is that crowdfunding? It's working.
It worked for me. Crowdfunding is an interesting thing. I feel like because it relies so much on you having to kind of beg from friends and family, I feel like you only really get one shot with crowdfunding.
Right.
You can't kind of come back with your hand out again and again.
Right. We've got to give them something back.
Yeah, and the other thing about crowdfunding is that because there's no real accountability for donations, there are a lot of projects that will collect a lot of money and then they won't get made, which I think is really sad. Or they won't kind of acknowledge their backers and things like that. So that's something we were really cognizant of. But I think crowdfunding and especially like DSLR technology are wonderful because it makes it possible for people who couldn't make movies to go out and make something that looks really great.
Sure.
And the biggest thing I would say is tenacity is really the only thing that's going to work, because the industry is designed very intentionally to have a very thick and very high wall around it. And you're going to spend, like for me, it was well over 10 years like kind of trying to find a little foothold in the door through. But it's designed to frustrate people to the point of abandonment, and that's kind of the only
Let the
thing.
cream rise to the top.
Well, and not even so much when it comes to talent or anything like that. I think that's what kind of saves you once you get a shot. But it's really just persistence, almost like on a delusional level, persistence and a refusal to quit. Because like the only difference I've ever really been able to see between the people who kind of gotten over to the other side is just that for however long it took, sometimes it takes decades, they just don't quit. And that's really hard to do because it's like you will have days of more than your fair share of kind of sitting there feeling it's never going to work, and that can be crushing. So
I know exactly.
Yeah.
The industry that I'm in was completely undeveloped when I started. And there's so many times when I've even sat at home and went, I wasted the last 5 years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely I bumped my head into a wall so many times, and then finally it breaks loose for a little bit, and you're like, oh, there's a little bit of traction.
Mm-hmm.
And
little bit.
Right, and then
no.
yeah, and then you bang your head into it again. And for you, coming from the other side of the industry, what can you tell these filmmakers that are out there? Do they still keep making the shorts, submitting the shorts? Do you hit the festival circuits? Are you guys actively looking in that way?
Yeah, I mean, a fresh voice is kind of everything, and especially if it can be. I mean, I have a studio background, but most of my career has been independently financing things. So
Okay.
the idea is take that fresh voice, put a great piece of material with it, and get a wide release with it. It's sort of,
Sure.
it's what we did here, thanks to the relativity and Jason development part. But, by hook or by crook, that's what we want to do.
Sure.
So the thing you can't teach a young filmmaker is voice. And so if you can get that crowdfunding, if you can make that short and get your voice and perspective out there, yeah, I do look at that stuff. And if I'm not at the festival, I'm getting it elsewhere
Someone's sending
online.
it,
Or,
right.
Yeah, and it's everything, because I think that's what revitalizes our industry on a continuous basis. So there's always room, but you have to stick to it, and you have to put it out there, and you
Just
have to
keep making them, keep submitting them,
Yeah.
keep making them.
And practice. Like it was
Yeah.
Robert Rodriguez who said your first 10 films are going to suck, so get them over with quickly.
Hurry
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, like it is true. It's a craft that you have to learn and hone. And like my first 3 movies that I made, like digital movies I started making when I was like 21, are like not fit for public consumption.
You still won't show me.
Yeah, no way in hell.
We'll
I
dig
mean,
'em up.
like, oh god, I hope not. But I'm really glad I did them, even though like the end product wasn't something that was going to change the world or launch my career, because I learned a ton.
Sure.
And it was very important just to log the hours and just keep working. And it was like if you find yourself in a rut and you feel like nobody's paying attention and there's no way into the industry, screw it. Take a weekend, scrape together what little cash you can, have a bake sale and a car wash if you have to, and get your friends together and just keep making stuff.
Just go film.
Yeah. Just keep shooting and try to grow with every single project.
And I'm guessing in those first 10 films, you learn a lot about filming out of sequence so that you can get stuff done.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's the thing. The basics that you can't learn in a class. Like you can. There's a huge amount of this business you can only learn on a set. So if you can't get on one, make one.
Right.
And the kind of fundamental lessons will come at you no matter what. Like everybody deals with the same basic problems in production. It's just inherent to it.
They're gonna happen.
So you'll learn very quickly. You'll learn about the issues with continuity. You'll learn about the importance of great production audio. You'll learn about how difficult it is to keep what should be a linear and consistent arc, and to break it up, out of sequence and try to film it. Like you'll be forced to learn all that. So, like, just get out there and create as many classrooms for yourself as you can.
There it is. Filmmaking 101. That's Mike Flanagan. That's Trevor Macy. I'm Trevor O'Connor. This is Unfiltered and Unaffected. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.